Hey everyone, and welcome to my Procreate demo for the piece I call Mr. Draven. So The Crow is one of my favorite movies, especially when I was younger, and I always hesitate to draw things that I really like because I usually don't feel like it lives up to my imagination of what I was trying to draw. But I was on the train the other day going from Hamburg to Berlin, and I decided to sketch up the Crow. So you can see here's the start of the process where I'm starting to rough in what I want his posture to be, and then I sort of sized him down, put a crow in, sized that down. So you'll see a lot of little adjustments there while I'm trying to figure out the layout. And then I go into the, so I usually call that like the super rough, and now I'm just going into the rough where I'm sort of planning it a little bit more in detail. And you're gonna see that I stop at one point because I had to do this all from memory because I didn't have internet at the time. So this is all just sort of going off of my impression of the crow, and then eventually I get internet. I even make a note of it in the piece, and I can then sort of like look up a crow better, you know, to get the crow's anatomy, and then look up the actual details of Eric's costume so that I could get it right. It's one of those things that in everybody's mind they know exactly what the crow looks like, but then when it comes down to the details and like how everything goes, like the electrical tape and all that, it's, you know, a little hard to remember. Also, I couldn't exactly remember what his scar, the shape of his scar that goes over his nose and up to his eye, I couldn't remember that, so I wanted to wait until I could really get the reference for that. So you can see here, I've zoomed in a little bit so you can see what's going on. I decided to draw him without the makeup on and then do the makeup as part of the coloring process. At one point when I was doing this, I wanted to do it very rendered. I was actually going to do his body just sort of like all in solid black and then render his face a lot and then try to bring some rendering to his hair. But then in the middle of it, I just sort of got more of like a watercolory vibe for it. So I did cleaner, tighter lines so that I could do the watercolor and have the lines support the sort of loose foundation of the watercolor. And so otherwise, this is just sort of your basic process. I'm just going in and applying tight lines so that I have something hopefully good looking to color. I get a lot of questions about the brushes. I think I mention it every video now. I do have a video that's called Palmas mit Mayo where I explicitly show I explain and I show the brushes that I use. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't like to hear it, but I don't use any brushes, any custom brushes in Procreate right now. I'm not against custom brushes, I just tend not to out of sort of more laziness. I just sort of learn to use whatever a program has. I have some custom Photoshop brushes I use, but when it comes to Procreate, it's all the stuff that's already in Procreate. The only difference is I take the technical pencil and I increase the maximum size that it can go, which is just in the settings. It's very easy to find in the individual brush settings. So if you duplicate the technical pencil and then just go into that, and where it says min max for size, you just increase the max. That's all I do. That's the only tweak I make to any brush so far. The only other brush that I've made that exact same tweak on is the sort of big fuzzy airbrush. I take that one and I made it so its max size would be bigger too, so that I could replicate things like gradients. So I just want to call out right now, nice and clear, that every brush I use is in Procreate. You don't really need super fancy brushes to do a lot of stuff. Brushes are just more to save time. Custom brushes are more to save time so that you don't have to replicate certain looks by hand. So here I make a note in the piece. I say that's as far as I'll go from memory. And now you can imagine that I then put this thing down and then I picked it up again like a day later and I started working on it again. So here I am now in the bottom. I'm putting more of the tape in. I made the tape on the sides of his body and on his arm like uneven, and then I decided that I didn't really like that. I wanted to keep the form a little simpler. So you can see I went in just now and I smoothed all that out. So now he's got the electrical tape on his forearms and on his stomach, and then I went in and I put the little like weird banding that they have in there that sort of puts like that X on his chest. He had a lot more rips in his shirt than I remembered, so I just sort of put those where I felt like putting them. Those aren't exactly accurate. And you can also see that the scar on his nose that goes up into his eye is now there in the right spot. So now I'm going in and figuring out what the shape is I want for the bird. I wanted the bird to sort of have more personality than him in a way. So he's just sort of stern and like, you know, I'm going to get my revenge type look. And then the bird is a little bit more just, I don't know, kind of annoyed, kind of perturbed. I just thought that'd be fun. So you can see I've done some little sizing here and there to try and get the bird the right size. I wanted the bird to be a little bit bigger. I wanted him to be like a raven, like they actually used for the movie. But not too big. So you can see I sort of went in and put the feet there because I was like, yeah, I want feet here. I want the feet coming over the side of his, over the top of his shoulder. But then I decided that that actually was like a weirdly distracting thing to have there. I think I actually start detailing it a little bit and then I decided to back out of it. And that really was just because I sort of like the simplicity of him being 100% behind Eric. I know that that doesn't give overlap and it doesn't sort of establish that depth of his shoulder, and that's could probably be critiqued as a bad idea, but I really just sort of like simplifying that interaction. So here I am doing my least favorite thing in the world to do, which is feathers, and then just sort of wrapping up the tummy and shading that shadowy part. See, yeah, here it is. I'm going in and putting the claws, and then I just decide that I really don't like it. I tried a couple times in different configurations, and then I just say, screw that. I don't really actually like that. So now we're going in and doing the flats. When I watercolor, when I do like digital watercolor, I apply the flats in the watercolor also. It's not really as efficient, but it then gives you those little imperfections here and there, which is actually something that I'm looking for. It's really all about just sort of controlled mistakes, really. It's really subtle, but I made one of his eyes lighter than the other, just like it actually is. But I'm sure only super nerds like me would even look for that. So now here, flatting in the hair, putting in, I want to layer in everything about his real skin, just in case I decide to pull that away from the paint, and then you can sort of see it shining through. In the movie, his nose actually does come through quite a bit once his makeup starts rubbing off later in the movie, and if he's got the electrical tape, we're in sort of the later part of the movie. One thing about this piece that I really liked actually was I sort of like the way it looks right here before I went in and put in the shadow. But I decided to just go all the way anyways. You might actually see some stuff from me in the future where I go with more of this kind of look where I just flat it and then do some like little slight advancements of the flat and then stop, and I'm not going to put in shadows. I just think it could be a really fun thing to mess around with. So now I'm putting in shadows. I'm doing a slightly warmer than what I usually do shadow. It's a little bit on the reddish side of purple, as opposed to just being sort of right in a gray purple like I normally use. I wanted to do that because I just wanted to give him an overall warmer tone, so I wanted his shadows to be a little on the warm side. So like past things you've seen me do, that's just a multiply layer on top of everything basically. So if you go back and you look at my select clear, select paint, or select paint, select clear, and you go back and look at just any of my pieces where I don't do a ton of rendering, that's what I do. Now this was just a real messy sequence in the background where I just sort of went in and it's all just one color brush and I'm just futzing around with it and erasing. There's no tricks going on at all with that back part, so I can't really explain it too much, but here it is repeated so you can just sort of see it twice if you want to go back and rewatch it. I mean, it's really just using one brush, painting it, erasing it back, and then going back in on that same layer. So again, no tricks here. It's really just some erasing and some painting. So that's what gives it the background. Now I'm going in and doing the actual crow itself, the bird. He's a slightly bluer black than the sort of warmer black that I have on Eric's costume, just for a little bit of color separation, because ravens and crows have that slightly bluish black thing going on with their feathers. So I wanted to make sure I had that in there. So now here I'm just doing a lot of sort of post effects. That weird thing that just happened with the shadows was me duplicating the shadows and making them really, really red and then erasing away from those shadows. It's sort of too much to actually go over. I repeated it here so you can see it again. I just encourage you to try lots of tricks. Take a look at other pieces of art, take a look at real life, and just try to observe as much as possible and then see if there are ways that you can try and do it in your art. I think the biggest takeaway from any of these things is not so much to actually learn 100% the techniques that people are trying to teach you, but instead to sort of internalize them, figure out why they're being done that way, and then create tricks of your own. So that is the piece. I hope you dig it. I hope that you're a Crow fan and you thought that it was fun to see him in my style. Otherwise, that's a wrap. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. And if you're looking for me on the internet, these are the places where you can find me.